My name is Christopher Reverett, and I'm the program manager with the Southern Documentary Fund. And today is the Southern Documentary Fund Production Grant Information Session number 2. Remember, the deadline is coming up real soon, October 15th at 11:59 p.m. ET. So definitely after this session, definitely get those applications together. And definitely get them submitted. We definitely want to get all your projects in on time. Also joining me is our communications manager, Dana Collins, who you just saw her taking a snapshot. So she'll also be fielding out some questions. So if you have any questions and everything, don't talk out loud just yet. We'll have a part in there for that. So we want to ask folks to put your questions in the chat box, type them in the chat box. So what I'll be doing is each section I'll kind of go through it, and then I'll take a pause to open it up, for folks to talk if you have any questions or anything about that section. So we'll go through each section, take a pause, open up the floor. You guys can ask questions, and then at the end of the application, we'll open it up again for a brief Q&A as well. And that's pretty much it. I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Opening up hold on one second. Right, this up. All right, can everybody see that? All right, good to go. All right, so once you go in, you go to our website, southerndocumentaryfund.org. You go to the grant section of our website, click to apply, this pops up in submittable. And this pretty much is the grant application. And also I have to give a shout out to the MacArthur Foundation. Without their support, we wouldn't be able to do this right here. So I definitely want to give a huge thank you to the MacArthur Foundation for their generous support. Also, we're using the documentary core application. The documentary core application is pretty much a set standard that the International Documentary Association, they're behind. And it really is good, because I remember at a time where trying to apply to different grants, everyone had different requirements. Every grant was different, and it just took a lot of time and really kind of took the wind out of you as a filmmaker. So this is pretty much a more helpful thing. So if you get good at doing this documentary core application, you can really transition it to other grants and funding that is out there, because we all kind of use the same type of application. So, you're doing it for one, you can kind of do it for several others, and it just makes the process, a whole lot easier. And it's helped me out a lot. It helped me get quite a few grants, just basically learning this type of core application. Again, I said October 15th, midnight is due. So that time will come up quick on you. I know as a filmmaker, it'll definitely creep up on you. So definitely after this, we're recording this, and we also have the other one that's pre-recorded as well. And you guys can always go back and look at some stuff, just in case you have some other questions that come down. And also you can email me as well, and I'll put my email in the chat box as well. Dana, you can go ahead and put that in the chat box for me. So again, it's very competitive. 5 projects will be selected, 10,000 each, and folks will be notified, around December. Eligibility, I know this comes up quite often. We're only funding documentaries, documentary projects, and those documentary projects can be short, feature length, and docuseries as well, and also experimental. I know we have a lot of folks that are doing experimental documentaries. We do accept those type of documentaries as well. So experimental, short, feature length, and docuseries are definitely eligible to apply for this grant. Also, your project has to be in at least like the pre-production stage, like you're about to start filming real soon. You're already filming production, and also, or you're in post-production, like you're wrap filming, you're in editing and stuff like that. So we don't we're not funding research and development, distribution, or engagement funds at this time for this grant. And if you have any other questions, because your project might, I don't know, fall in a weird, place with it, you can just ask me, on this call, or just email me as well. Project directors, you have to live in one of the 12 states. So if you're the main producer, or you're the actual film director, so the 12 states: Alabama, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia, and West Virginia. We may expand in the future to some other states, but for right now, these are the 12. Applicants also have to have a social security number or U.S. federal tax ID. I know a few filmmakers, some folks are like from overseas, but the main producer and the person that put this whole thing together, is in the U.S., so they should apply. Applicants must be at least 18 years of age or older. Also, applicants can't be enrolled in film school or seeking funds for a student project or student film. So like I said, if you have special circumstance or anything, do not hesitate to reach out, email me. And my email is also on the application as well, and also in the chat box. Our criteria is pretty much, I know with some grants, some focus on social justice or, all this, different things, but we don't have like a one set type of film we're looking for. We cover it all, and it really falls within our scope of our missions and values of telling, stories in the South and elevating those stories. Also, we want the team members and directors and people to have a strong connection to the story. This really helps your application a lot, and you'll see what I'm talking about when I get to that section. Also, we want it to be well researched, clearly presented, a decent budget, a budget that shows that, okay, you have a plan and you have a plan to finish this, and also a fundraising plan, because, getting our money is not just going to do it. You need to be able to raise some other funds, through other grants or crowdfunding or, donors, stuff like that to really, make your project happen. And so you want to have a good fundraising plan in place. And I'll show you more about that when we get to that section. Also, we want folks who, I know I was a first-time director at one time. So even if you're a first-time director, we want to see that you have collaborators that also have skills and experience. When I put my first film together, I had no experience at all. So I reached out to people who had the experience and had the background and knowledge, and that made my application look even much better. So even if you are a first-time director or you're new to this, really try to reach out and collaborate with folks who have been there and done it, and that know, the documentary genre and know how to put a project together. It's going to not only help your application, but it's going to help you as a filmmaker grow as well. I know it's helped me a lot, putting people in place and having executive producers that have still been mentors to me to this day. So building those collaborations is going to help you as a filmmaker overall, even down, going down the road. And also the applicant, must kind of show an understanding of their intended audience and how to reach them. And we'll go more in that as well when we get to that section. You want to know your audience and you want to know how to reach them, because you can make the best film ever, but if no one, watches it, it kind of defeats the purpose. So, we want to, see if you really know your audience and know how to reach as well. So again, I'll talk more about that when we get to that section. Any questions so far until we go to the next one? Raise your hand or speak.
I have a question.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm the story protagonist. I'm also the visionary.
All right.
My son is directing this project. He's a first-time director, but we also have producers that have experience in the documentary world, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm the story protagonist and I'm also a producer, should I fill out this application or should the director fill out the application?
You guys based, your son and everything, he's based in the South in one of
Yeah,
these states?
we're in New Orleans.
Oh, yeah. Well, either or can do it. Either or can do it. And, you can help them, write it out.
I was just wondering, because the story is about me and, other characters in the story.
Right.
I'm leading it. I'm more of the visionary,
Right.
I was just wondering if it would be better for me or would it be
I think
better?
it would be, how old is your son? He's over 18, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. He's 20.
I would say have your son do it, because to me, when we get to a certain section, when it talks about connection to the story, it's going to make him look better as a filmmaker, saying, hey, I have a direct connection because this is my mom. This story, she's the main character in this, and it's more of a personal connection. And I'm gonna go more into that when I get to that section. And yeah, I think you can help him fill it out, but I think your son should do it. To me, I think it's more impactful, especially in the connection to the story part. But I'll go over that a little bit, and I can show you my example of what I'm talking about.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Cool. No more questions. I'll go to the next section, and then we'll stop again after that. Next section, project title. This is honestly, I think a lot of times this gets overlooked, but I think the project title is important. I know a lot of times people kind of struggle with the title. Definitely get your title. You can always, put, I guess in parentheses or whatever, quotations, working title, that you might change it later on. But to me, never put untitled documentary project. Create a title, write it down. I always do that as well, just as a documentary filmmaker. I have a notepad whenever I'm coming up with a concept or a project. I write down a few titles, share it with a few folks, share it with my wife and a few close associates, and just see, what, makes an impact, just off them just reading it and just kind of running with that. But if you're still unsure, just put, working title, in parentheses. People do that all the time. It's just a tentative title, but definitely have your title. You don't want to put untitled feature-length documentary in your project title. Project stage, pre-production, like I said, folks that are in pre-production, that's meaning that, after this call, or really pretty much if you get the grant, you're ready to start filming. You're out of the research and development stage. You're ready to roll. You got your crew ready. You got locations locked. You got folks that you're ready to film locked. You're ready to roll. You just need the 10 grand. Early production is like you just started to film, like you're kind of just starting now filming. Mid-production, you're kind of like at that midpoint. You got a lot of footage already shot and you're about to wrap up. Post-production is pretty much wrapped up filming, and you're starting to do some early editing, and also post-production at that rough cut stage where, you have a rough cut, nice, solid work in progress overall. So these are the areas, that were funded for this. So if your project lies in this, definitely apply. And if you think it might, but you're not sure, that's when you ask questions or just email me. Project type, again, like I was saying earlier, documentary features over 40 minutes, documentary shorts, 40 minutes or under, documentary series as well. We see a lot that folks are, especially the streaming platforms, are doing docuseries a lot more. We support it. And so if you have a project that's a series, definitely apply. And also experimental as well, like I said earlier. We take all those genres, experimental as well. So definitely apply if you're falling under these three, and also experimental as well. Also another thing that's overlooked, all your information. So if you get the grant, we need to find out a way to contact you. So your full name, phone number, make sure it's a working number that you constantly check all the time. Also your email address, make sure it's an email address that you always check, because you don't want to miss out if you do get selected for a grant and we can't contact you. I don't want that to happen. Your mailing address as well. Definitely need, your mailing address. Also, secondary contact info. Like, say, like you're just a busy person, kind of like me, and it just takes me a long time to get back to stuff. Have a primary, a secondary contact person, like maybe a producer or something that you really trust and that kind of, that we can reach out to just in case, we're having trouble reaching out to you. And also, remember, do you fall in the criteria, like I was stating below, 18 years of age or older, U.S. Social Security number, federal tax ID, and also resident of one of the southern states listed in the guidelines. I'll stop for right now before we go to the next section. And if anyone has any questions, go ahead and speak up.
Chris, there was a question in the chat from Steve that you started to answer, but just want to clarify.
Yeah.
He asked, what would an experimental film be considered under project type?
Let me see. Project type. What would experimental film be considered as? What do you mean?
Sue, do you want to elaborate on your question?
Yeah, elaborate.
Hey, if you could scroll up so I could see the 3 options.
Gotcha. Right here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's over 40 minutes, so I guess it would be documentary feature. It's just not a traditional documentary feature.
Yeah, that works.
Okay.
Yeah, because like experimental, you can have, like a short experimental film. You can have a feature. Like, to me, I think Hill County this evening it's a documentary feature, but it's experimental. You know what I'm saying? And then also I've seen other experimental shorts, as well. So experimental is more, it's not really a project type. I know a lot of folks kind of that are, we're starting to get more experimental filmmaking in the genre. And sometimes folks feel like, they don't have a place if they're an experimental filmmaker, and sometimes don't apply to certain grants. But what we're saying is that, no, if it's an experimental documentary, whether it's 40 minutes or, whether it's a documentary short or a feature, we want you to apply. So really the experimental aspect is not really a project type, but we just try to let people know if you are an experimental documentary filmmaker, definitely apply. And so long as you fit, in the documentary feature, short or series, apply to it. Any other questions in the chat or anybody else before we move on?
I had a question. So I was getting editing done throughout filming. Like I would just, we had over 22 hours of footage, and now the current cut is down to like 2.5 hours. We want to get it closer to 2, maybe 90 minutes. But since there's still not a rough cut yet, would I be early editing, or would that be close enough to just select rough cut? I mean, we're like a month away from having a rough cut.
Yeah. I definitely would. To me, the post-production, early editing, or rough cut, you can choose either or. Because you can choose either or to me, because even when I get down to the work sample stage, I think we're only going to review up to like 5 minutes. So out of that rough cut that you got going, I would really capture the best 5 minutes you have that really tell your story. And it's just going to make your application stronger, but you can select one of these, man. It don't really, because, you're going to kind of go back and forth. You know how editing is, you might have a rough cut and you do a work in progress sample screening, and, some things might not work, so you're going to go back in, so it's going to be a back and forth thing. So you can kind of select either one of these, honestly, because you're going to be kind of going back and forth anyway, once you start getting that, those feedback from your, sample reviews, and maybe doing some work in progress screenings, So either or, honestly, is fine. You're not, at a stage where you're going to say, we have the cut and we're about to submit to festivals. Nah, so you're still within this range. So you're good, really, honestly, selecting either one of these two.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
Cool. All right. Let me see. Let me get back going. All right. Well, we'll go to the next. We'll go to the next section. And I know people are going to have some questions for this one. So I'll try to go through this quick and then open up the floor again. Project description. And this is like the first, I guess, meaty section of the application. And to start off is the log line. I think this is probably the most important piece for your film in regards to marketing as well. Even when you get your film done and get it out there, the log line is always key. We have to always put ourselves in the mind of the consumer as well. And that's what helps me always write log lines is like, I like to go to movies. I like to watch documentaries. So I always look at people's log lines and they help me write mine. So a log line is just a brief, catchy summary of the documentary. Usually 2 to 3 sentences max. So if you have kind of trouble writing log lines, a lot of times when I get stuck of trying to figure out how to write one, I always just look up other documentaries and just see how they write theirs, how it flows, how they start off, how they end it. And so just look up different documentaries, IMDb, or when you're scrolling on Amazon or Netflix, they always have catchy log lines and stuff like that. So that's where you want to put that. You want to kind of limit it to 100 words. So like I said, 2 to 3 sentence max. Story summary. This is where pretty much is the synopsis for your project. And so, the synopsis is really, your story and the story structure. You want to give an overview of your story, introducing the main characters and the potential plot points. Describe the anticipated story structure and narrative trajectory or potential character arcs for your project. Discuss your access to the story and characters. I know with this one, with my documentary, Grandmaster, the Vic Moore story, it's about a martial artist, a legendary martial artist from the 1960s, and he's still around teaching martial arts to this day. And so how I kind of crafted it with this, you want to kind of give us a view of how your film, you want to kind of give us a scene, describe a scene. I know how I did mine was I described a scene of Grandmaster Vic Moore of him doing his annual karate seminar / Christmas dinner. And so we kind of set it up with him, he's in a wheelchair. So we were very descriptive of that, of his health. His gi, his karate gi is worn down. It's a lot of wear and tear. So we described that to show you that he's been in this for a long time. Just describe the whole atmosphere and setting of this first scene that you're going to see. So my experience doing this, that always is cool. A lot of, funders like seeing that of, capturing them with like an intro type scene, what I'm saying, to kind of give you a glimpse of what this film is going to be about and what we can expect and, and anticipate. And you're also introducing the main character. You want to do that by introducing your main character or characters. Some films have 1, some have 3 or 4. So you want to kind of give us a overview, introduction to these characters, and also give us some potential plot points as well. My plot point was just Grandmaster Moore's health and how long he has to live and before he can, actually pass down his knowledge to the next generation of martial artists that he's been working with. So you want to hit some of those potential plot points as well. We know in documentaries, some of those things change once you're filming, but put down what you're actually thinking about, what you anticipate, some of those plot points to be. Also, the access to the story and characters. You definitely want to talk about that. I know with my project about Vic Moore, just the access I had, I just described, say, hey, he was my karate teacher's teacher. So, I had the connection with him off of that. And then also just developed a relationship with him. I was, taking him to his doctor's appointments, taking him to karate tournaments, spending a lot of time with him. Now I'm pretty much like a son now, in a sense. And you want to kind of talk about that, how you have access. And I know the filmmaker earlier were talking about a son. I think with your application, this is key where your son comes into play. and he can talk about having access to you and you being his mom and all of that, and just giving the background of that could be very key. So, you know, when you're thinking about that, just think about your access to this story and to the characters in the story as well. That's very key. You know, we just don't want to show up and start filming people. You know, you want to build that relationship. And I think that's where research and development really goes into play, of building that trust. And it's going to take a while, because even when I started filming Grandmaster Moore, first couple of you know, film shoots, it was kind of weird, you know, but over time he started getting comfortable, because some people, they have to get comfortable with that camera on. And, you know, over time, you know, they'll get, you know, a little comfortable with it. Even if they're cool with you, you know, everyone isn't comfortable with having a camera on them all the time. So it kind of gets, you know, they have to get used to it. And, you know, and also, again, let me reiterate, is that I know you see the suggested length, 1 to 2 pages. We don't want you to write a book report. So when you see this, we really want you to focus on the content more than anything. So it could be really a half a page, you know, long as your words are on point and are striking, and really give us a visual of what you're trying to convey. That's all that matters. And I know the documentary core app folks at IDA, you know, we've all been meeting to talk about, you know, lowering some of this stuff instead of being 2 pages, you know, just have it, you know, half a page or whatever. So don't get caught up on the length of a lot of your answers. When you see the 1 to 2 pages, at least try to give us a half a page and just focus more on the content more than anything. The topic summary. This is the part where you want to really talk about why your topic is important, and why it's timely or relevant. So I guess to the current climate we're in right now. Things to consider, you know, why are you the best person to make a film about this? Like I was telling you earlier with Grandmaster Vic Moore, you know, his you know, my teacher was, you know, my teacher learned under Grandmaster Moore. So it was like, you know, actual lineage there. And, you know, I've always been a fan, you know, of martial arts, and I always wanted to tell this type of story, because growing up, you know, with Black martial artists, it was always something negative. It was all like a Dragonfly Jones comedy type thing. And I've always wanted to make something serious, you know, with Black martial artists. And I've already had a background of doing documentaries about Black history and culture, my film Wilmington on Fire. So it just made sense, you know. So you want to, you know, tell us why you're the best person to make a film about, you know, what you're doing. Explain the cultural or social relevance and context for the topic, and why this project is timely or urgent. Detail the topics, issues, themes, challenges, stakes, or questions that your project will cover. You know, for example, even with Grandmaster Moore, the challenges and the stakes is really time. You know, he's older. Even over the 3 years we've been filming him, some of the people we wanted to film have died and passed on because of their age and their health. And martial arts has really taken a toll on a lot of these guys, their bodies and everything. And so the challenge that I was facing was time of that. You know, you don't really know when they're actually going to be leaving, and leaving that when they leave and die, that knowledge dies with them, and the stories die with them as well. And so that was really what I focused on for this section with mine, was the challenge of time. So everyone has a different challenge, you know. It's really looking at your project and really talking about that. But yeah, that's where your topic summary is going to go. And these are really the key things. You know, why are you the best person to make this film? You know, explain some of the cultural, social relevance. Sometimes your project might not have a cultural or social relevancy to something, but that's okay. That doesn't disqualify you at all. Again, it doesn't have to be 1 to 2 pages. It can be a good half a page, and focus more on content more than anything. Artistic approach. This is very important. You know, we want to know how are you going to tell it? You know, is it going to be a cinema verite style, observational style? Is it going to be the standard talking heads? Is it going to be experimental? This is where you want to kind of talk about that, describe that. How are you going to tell the story? Describe your creative vision for the finished product. The visual look and feel. How is it going to look? How is it going to feel? What type of music you're going to have with it? Are you going to have a score, composer? And also give an example. I know my example with Grandmaster, the two examples that I put in mind was the movie The Wrestler with Mickey Rourke. It was kind of like about a broken down former, world wrestling champion. And that's really what Grandmaster Moore's life is kind of like right now. He's a former world karate champion, beaten, broken, but he's still trying to climb up, even to this day. And also the tone and style was really reflective of what I wanted to do. And also the movie Red Belt by David Mamet is another inspiration, a visual inspiration, and also the music as well. The score of the martial arts score that they had was very captivating. And so I wanted to have that similar feel and tone with the sound and music of my film. So we put all that in there. You want to explain your intended use of cinematic language or any particular artistic approach that informs the storytelling. So how you want your cinematography to be, how you want the story to play out visually. Also, any other creative elements like motion graphics, animation, again, music. You want to put all those creative elements in there. Things that's going to enhance the story as well. Some people, like I say, use animation. If you're using it, put it in. Let us know what you're going to do to really enhance the story, and just give us your overall vision of how you want to put this thing together. Explain how these elements will enhance the experience and interaction between viewers and the world of the story. So it's pretty much what I just said. It's just how are these elements, like whether it's animation, music, certain things you're going to be doing with cinematography. Just show us how that's going to enhance the experience with the audience, and also enhance the story as well. And again, they have on here just half a page. Again, just, and it can be probably less than that. Really just focus on the content more than anything. Project stage and timeline. This is pretty much simple. This is very simple right here. This is pretty much where you are, your current status of the project. And so you want to put down, currently filming, and then you want to put what you're filming, what you plan on filming during this time period. And then also you want to put your next steps. When do you anticipate post-production as well, and how long that will take, and what's all that's going to entail. And so you want to give a timeline of where you're at, and also where you're going, from shooting, post-production, and also when you also want to premiere this film as well. So you want to put that in the timeline. Then also we have the IDA, we have the link on our website. It kind of gives you an example of what we're talking about, of how you want to write it out. And it's very simple, very simple. And again, as simple as this one paragraph right here. So it's pretty much just talking about, your timeline, pretty much, and the dates. It don't have to be exact dates. It can be like October 1st, 2021 to December 2021, I'm going to be in production, and then post-production, another timetable. And also give us a little bit of what you'll actually be doing during that time frame as well. That's it for that section. Any questions?
Chris, you have
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say you had two questions in the chat.
Okay.
The first question was from Ann Woodford, who was asking how long the sample can be.
Oh, cool. Yeah, we haven't got to that part yet, but the sample, we're going to review up to 5 minutes. So it's not really, as long as you don't go over 5 minutes, you're cool. So it can be, because everyone's at a different spot, even if you're in production, you might not have what you need. You might just only have a good minute or two. So that's good. But again, it goes back to the length of the writing part. focus more on the content, the quality of the content. So between 1 minute to 5 minutes is good. And really you want to focus, if you're going to give us a minute, give us the best minute possible, you know? And also if you're going to give us 3 or 5 minutes, give us the best 3 or 5 minute possible. So we're only going to be requiring our reviewers to review up to 5 minutes.
And then the second question in the chat was from Felicia. They asked, what if you plan to use a certain type of artistic element and then decide it doesn't fit? Is that an issue?
No, not at all. Because, you know, films change. You know, I know even with my project Grandmaster, at first, I thought that I was going to do like a biopic style of documentary where we could, you know, chronicle his whole life from beginning to end and have all this archival stuff. And turned out I couldn't hardly find any archival materials like that. So I had to change up my whole approach. So we doing it more of an observational cinema verite style of a film now. So it happens, you know, that's going to happen. And also I started off Grandmaster as doing it as a short as well, because I didn't have a lot of access to certain materials. But then that changed when I did a fellowship and they said, hey, your cinema verite observational style is really working and you should really expand that. And so that changed my whole approach. So it's going to happen, you know, so if it doesn't work, it is what it is. You know, that's just part of filmmaking, you know, to try certain things out. So yeah, that's not a problem at all. You know, you really want to put what you really want to do on here. And then a month or so down the road, if it doesn't work, you know, it just doesn't work, you know, but that's not going to really change really your overall story. You know, your story is your story.
And we have one more question inside the chat box. Elva is asking, does the doc have to be about the American South?
No, it doesn't. Like if you have to, you know, you have to be in the South as the filmmaker, at least. So you as the filmmaker, or if you're the main producer, you have to be in the South. But no, the story technically doesn't have to be about the South. Because, you know, I'm a Southern filmmaker. If I wasn't with the Southern Documentary Fund, you know, the next project that I was going to be working on, it wasn't nothing to do with the South. So I probably, you know, but being a Southern maker, being in Durham, North Carolina, I still would qualify. Because we have filmmakers that are based in the South, in one of the 12 states, but their film, for example, it's a great film. I think it's called Kafaru. It's about over in Africa with these, the last of the white rhinos over there. But the filmmakers are in Winston-Salem, you know? And so, yeah, your film doesn't necessarily have to be about the South, but you have to be in the South though. Because we want to champion Southern stories, but we want to support and champion Southern makers as well. All right, I think someone had a question they wanted to talk.
I did.
Oh,
Yeah.
go ahead.
My question is, my project is a docuseries, right? And I have about 12 characters in this series. For
Okay.
the character arc, do I have to describe each character in the series?
You don't have to. I would probably stick with maybe 3 to 4.
Okay.
Yeah, I would stick 3 or 4 because, you know, if you're doing 12, you're going to have like a book.
Exactly.
So I would stick with your top 3. I would say your top 3 to 4 that are real intriguing, real interesting, that will, you know, that you can really describe. And when people read about them, they say, man, I gotta know more. That's what I would do. I would stick to your top 3 or 4 that you know that have a very interesting story.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. Any more questions before we move on?
Jessica is asking in the chat, it says, you mentioned there was a link or something that showed an outline of the timeline. Can you elaborate on that, Jessica? Are you talking about the timeline for the grant application?
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about. The project stage and timeline. Yeah.
Oh, I just linked to that in the chat above you, Jessica.
Cool.
It's from the documentary core application checklist.
Yeah. And they'll kind of give you an example of what I was kind of describing. And you can kind of, branch off of that. It's pretty simple. It's just like a small paragraph. It's real easy. But yeah, it's in that link that Dana just sent you.
I'm pasting it again, just in case.
Cool. All right. Well, if no one has any other questions, we'll go on to audience and distribution. This is my favorite section. Audience and distribution, I think this is more important a lot of times than even making the film. Because like I said earlier, you can make the best film ever. But if you don't reach the audience, if no one sees it and you don't know how to really get it out there and give it some life, it really defeats the purpose. So we want to know your distribution and marketing strategy. Like I said, things change. We really want, you to really think about this, because like even when I made my film, I thought like everybody, yeah, I'm gonna get a distribution deal and all this and that. It didn't happen, but my film, I was able to still self-distribute as well. And my film's been out for about 6 years and we still screen 3 to 4 times a month. We constantly screen. And so I figured it out. I figured out a good marketing strategy, a distribution plan as well. And I found my audience. And so that audience continues to grow with me and wants to support even my other projects as well. So, you're just not doing this grant just to apply for a grant. This actually gives you a good game plan overall as a filmmaker that I still use to this day. So it's only just going to help you as a filmmaker as well. That's how you got to kind of look at it. But distribution and marketing strategy is just, let's talk about the distribution life for your film. Do you have a festival circuit that you want to do? What festivals do you want to hit? And, when you're thinking about festivals, I know we want to apply to so many because Film Freeway kind of made it so easy for us to just select whatever and apply to everything. But you want to be strategic. I know when I did my first film, Wilmington on Fire, I was very strategic of the festivals. So I wanted to premiere. I knew, I had to come to grip. We all want to submit Sundance, and I knew I wasn't good enough for that. So I said, I'm not even gonna waste my time. So what I did was I said, okay, my film is on the Wilmington Massacre of 1898. Let me premiere this thing at the top film festival in Wilmington, which is Cucalouris. And so what we did, we had developed a relationship with them early. I was in their work in progress program. And so I already had a direct link in. And sometimes you want to do that. You want to look at different work in progress programs, fellowships with certain documentary orgs or film festivals. That way, sometimes you can get in when you want to start, screening at festivals or at their festivals, so that's why I said, I had a strategy. And this goes back to the strategy that I was talking about in the game plan. And so we premiered at Cucalouris, ended up still having their most attended screening ever in the 20-year history. And it fit because, the film was based on Wilmington history. We did a lot of marketing while we were filming, and it was a big hit. And so we screened it there, screened at the Pan-African Film Festival. So we focused on a lot of African-American film festivals that dealt with history and stuff like that. And so that's what I'm saying. You look at your film, see where it can really fit in festivals. And they don't always have to be the big ones, like Tribeca. We all want to do that and submit to it. But there are other festivals out there as well that can have a huge impact for your film and can lead to other screenings and opportunities as well. And that's how I got a lot of my opportunities, even with funding from other future projects. People come into certain festivals and hearing my story. And it goes back, like I said, this application is really like a pitch that you can use throughout your career. Just talking about my connection to the story, my future plans. And folks were saying, hey, I heard your story at your Q&A at the festival. I want to give you $50,000 to help you get your next film going. And that's happened to a few times. So you want to, talk about your festival strategy. Community screenings are important, to me, just as important. Where you want to go. Like say if you're doing a film about farming, for example, go into those communities that have an agricultural economy. Definitely setting up screenings out there and really, getting connected with that community. Also, broadcasting as well. Real South, They're fans of ours. They're always looking for new films. So, you know, they're through PBS. So you have PBS, you have a whole bunch of broadcasting opportunities out here, you know. So you want to talk about all that, you know, even though it might not happen, but like I said, you want to put all this down of how you really want to market and distribute your project, you know, and just give us an idea of what you're thinking about, you know, potential distributors as well, you know, whether it's like Utopia, whoever out here that you kind of see that might want to, you know, distribute your project, put them down. And again, it's like one paragraph, is very short. Intended audience. This is who you anticipate watching your film. Like I said, for example, with Grandmaster, my audience for that was like, you know, martial arts folks who do karate, people that like MMA, fighting sports like boxing, people that like the action films, you know, the Bruce Lee fans, because Grandmaster Moore actually did a speed competition with Bruce Lee. We actually licensed the footage and everything. So we're going to have a section in there about Bruce Lee and him and Grandmaster Moore. So I was like, man, that's great. So now I can tap into that Bruce Lee fan audience. And so you want to see what you got within your film that you can kind of tap into. And that was one for what I did, you know, just the whole martial arts fandom in general with Bruce Lee and all that stuff, you know. And he has a huge, you know, his following is still huge to this day. And so we're able to tap into that. So you kind of want to do the same thing, you know, with your film. Also, how do you plan on reaching some of these audiences? You know, where do they go? Where do they shop? What, you know, what type of radio stations they listen to? You want to kind of do that type of research, you know, where your audience is at and how you want to actually reach them as well. I know for Wilmington on Fire, since that was about the 1898 massacre, and the underlining behind that was voting and politics. And so what we did was, when we did our community screenings, we partnered with like the NAACP, Democracy NC, all these organizations around voting. And so it was very cool for us to do that. And we're able to tap into that audience, because at the end of the day, even though it was an African-American story, it was still a story about politics and voting and the right to vote. And so they were more than willing to get behind us, because they kind of knew that aspect to the story as well. And we're very happy that, you know, we wanted to partner with them on certain community screenings. And we still do that to this day. Even during the pandemic, we did a virtual event with Democracy NC. We had about 500 people on the Zoom panel, you know, call in, you know, so they all watched the film for a week, had the link, and then we had a cool discussion, you know, 500 folks. So yeah, so those audiences are going to just rock with you, but you have to know how to reach them, and then once you reach them, you got to, you know, stay with them. And so that's where that goes. And again, it's simple, just one paragraph. Audience engagement and social impact. This isn't required, but if your film is like a film like I have, that might deal with social justice or voting or something like that, where you can do some type of direct action, this is where you want to put that at. And so again, the audience engagement piece is similar to what I just told you about how I partnered with certain social justice organizations to do screenings, and also they did voter registration as well at some of the screenings to get folks out to vote. So you want to put stuff like that in here if you have an audience engagement plan. But again, your film might not have like a social impact type of thing, and that's okay. That's what we have if applicable. So you don't have to force it, you know, if you don't have it. Because every film, you know, isn't going to be about that. But if you do have it, definitely put that in there of how you want to do it and how you're going to take viewers, you know, what actions you want folks to take after they see your film. But that's what this is. And it's like 1 to 2 paragraphs. A paragraph is cool. And it kind of goes into it, you know, potential activities could include organizational partnerships, like what I was just saying, educational guides, social media strategies. Again, I did an educational guide with Wilmington on Fire, and we would do several screenings with middle school and high school students. where the teachers would actually kind of get them comfortable with the history of 1898. We would show the film. I would come in, do a Q&A. I just did one like last week with a school in Durham, high school in Durham, and it was cool. So if your film kind of does that type of engagement, or you want it to do that type of engagement, describe that in this section right here. If it doesn't, you don't even have to worry about it. You know, it's not going to disqualify you if it's not applicable. Any questions?
Chris, there's one question in the chat.
Okay.
Felicia asked where they can see your films.
I'll put a link before we leave. I'll put a link. Yeah, but it's not about me today. It's about you guys. You know, I want to see your films and see them out there as well. So, but I'll put a link before we get out of here. All right. If there's no other questions, I'll go to the next part. This is pretty simple. The creative personnel. You want to put your bios. The director. I know with my mentor, we talked a few months ago because I'm applying for some new grants for the Grand Master Project. And I got caught up with this part right here because I thought that I should have everything in everybody's bio. You know, and she said, no, you want to have a paragraph, you want it short and sweet to the point. So when you do these brief bios of your key crew, keep them short, keep them at a paragraph. Also, the ones you want to focus on is director, producer, cinematographer, cinematographer, DP, editor, and I would say composer. And if you have like any executive producers with name, like we just wrapped Wilmington on Fire Chapter 2. And so I've been applying to a couple of grants, and I have me up there, my DP, the editor, the composer. He has so many credits under his name now. And then also my EP, which is Hillary Burton Morgan. She's an actress from One Tree Hill. And they filmed One Tree Hill for many years in Wilmington. And she heard about my film, heard that I was doing part 2, and she wanted to come on as an EP. And so she has a name and stuff like that. So if you have an EP with a name, definitely put them on here. It just gives your project more weight, and it gives your application more weight as well. But the key folks you want to have on here is the director, producer, editor, cinematographer, and composer. I think those are the key ones, because people want to know who's directing this thing, who's going to edit it, how's it going to sound, which is like the composer, and how it's going to look, cinematographer. To me, those are the key things. And if you have a name attached for a producer or executive producer, like a big name person, definitely put that on here as well. And again, keep their bios real short. Let's see here. We'll go to fundraising strategy. If anyone has, my fault, anybody got any questions about key personnel, creative personnel? All right, cool. Fundraising strategy. This is key right here, and it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. This grant isn't just going to fund everything, and so we want to see how you take this grant and also what other grants are you applying to, what other fellowships, and there are plenty out there. I know when I did mine, I put, this is before I even started at Southern Documentary Fund. I had got a small grant from SDF. I had that on there. I had got a small grant from, I think it was Film and NC by Cooper Loris. I had that on there. I put my own personal money in there and everything. So I kind of showed a strategy of how I wanted to fund this thing, showing the different grants that I plan on applying to or I've already applied to, crowdfunding. I was very experienced in that. I knew I definitely wanted to do a crowdfunding campaign. And I always suggest everybody try it at least once. Because not only can you raise funds, but you can also build awareness and audience as well around that as well. Because I still have people from my first crowdfunding campaign like 8 years ago they still support, all my projects. So you're kind of building an audience as well while you're doing that. So, it's not just about money, it builds audience as well. But I'm thinking about possibly having maybe Seed and Spark do a thing for us at SDF. And, you guys can join on in that as well. But yeah, so this is like a paragraph. And you're just giving us, a strategy of how you're going to raise those additional funds. So you can kind of list the different grants that you want to apply to and other funding opportunities that are out there that kind of fit, your project. Funding to date, this is pretty much what you got so far, all the resources that you've, tapped into and what you raised. Like, for example, like if I was doing mine right now for Grandmaster, I would put, Southern Documentary Fund, I would put Film at NC for a certain amount. I would put Firelight Media because I'm part of their fellowship now, and they gave me a, small little stipend thing. So I can put that in there. I also put in my own money as well. So those are the things you want to do. You want to kind of put all your funding to date, no matter how big or small, because some grants are $500, some are like $1,500, some are 20 and 30,000. So it doesn't matter how big or small. You want to put all that there because that shows initiative. That shows that you're taking the initiative to really fund this project, and you have a plan. Kind of goes back to this. This is the strategy. This is what you have to date. So you might have put in 10,000 of your own money. Put that on here. We all do it. So as a filmmaker, you're always going to put your own money, sweat equity into this thing. So definitely put that on there. And any other small grants or big grants or funding that you've gotten for this project, you want to list it here. And it's pretty much just listing it simple. And you can go to that link that Dana put in, and it will have an example of how to lay it out of your funding to date stuff. Grant impact, I think this is key right here. If you receive the grant, how are you going to use these funds? How are you going to spend it? And how will this help your project moving forward? I think this is a key part right here. You want to focus on this too. It's showing us if you get this money, it's $10,000, you're just not going to blow it. We want to know how you're going to spend it, what you're going to spend it on, and how will this $10,000 help your project, moving forward? Is it going to help you get to that next stage of your film? So definitely describe it here. And again, it can be a paragraph. If you want to extend it to 2 paragraphs, that's cool too. But we only need a paragraph right here. So just short, sweet, to the point. Straight to the point. And again, with anything, focus on the content. Any questions before we go on the budget? All right. Budget. I think this is the most challenging part of, I still struggle with it as well. Many of my documentary folks, always struggle with budget. We have an example. I think Documentary Core App has an example. I know we have a link to an example on our page as well that kind of gives you a comprehensive line item budget. Again, we don't want you to get too caught up on the budget because your budget will change. Like I said, even with my project Grandmaster, my budget changed because I'm not going to have as much archival material. We're going to be shooting it different. So budgets change all the time. So don't get caught up on it. But we do want you to, give us a budget of what you think it will cost to get this thing made, and that could be 100,000, 200,000, 300,000. We don't want you to give us a budget that's like $10 million because we know you're probably not going to get that. So give us something realistic, be realistic with it, with your budget. Also, you want to put in there, always remember this, pay yourself, put in there to pay yourself. If you're the director, don't give us an astronomical figure, but you do want to pay yourself. So definitely put that in there if you're the director or producer, to pay yourself. Doesn't mean that's going to happen because a lot of times we get grants, we'll kind of, put that to the side and get everybody else taken care of. But we do want to see that you are taking the initiative of paying yourself. We believe in that. So definitely do that. It took me a while to get a grasp of that too, but I always say, man, forget it. I just need the project made. I'll get mine on the back end. But always remember to pay yourself as well in these budgets, so you want to do that. A lot of documentary organizations have told me that over the years, media supply, because I had that mindset of screw that. I don't want to get paid. I'm pay everybody else, but they want to see that you're paying yourself as well. So if you are the director or producer, put that in there in that budget. And also for you guys, email me as well. We also have a cool webinar that we did, I think last year, that we had a great producer that goes over doing a budget. And I can email that to you guys, that webinar. And she kind of gives also an example that you can click and open up and see how she put her budget together. And she kind of goes over how to put a cool budget together. So after this call, email me and say, hey, Chris, I want to see that budget webinar, and I'll send it to you. And you can check it out, because I'm actually looking at it myself. So I've gotten some good things myself out of it. So I'll definitely share that with you guys as well. Just reach out to me and I'll send it to you. Work sample. This is what we were talking about earlier. Our reviewers we're only required to look up to 5 minutes. So give us the best 1 to 5 minutes that you have. Some people might just have a scene, just one scene. Hey, make that scene as good as possible to really show us, your style, how you're trying to tell the story and everything. So if you're a director, and this is if applicable, because you might be a first-time director, you might not have prior work. But if you do have prior work, this is where a director can, submit one of his or hers previous film. It could be a narrative. Some people are transitioning to documentary, have done narrative work. That's okay. You have to share what you have. I'm thinking about actually doing some narrative work. So when I'm applying for narrative stuff, I'm gonna have to submit my documentary work. That's all I have. So that's okay. I know a filmmaker on the last session. I think he was a horror filmmaker or a narrative filmmaker, and he's doing documentary now. And I said, nah, submit your narrative, because we can still, film is film, regardless, whether it's, no matter the genre. If you have a good narrative sample, a good, we can tell off the cinematography and everything, you're gonna be just fine. So, film is film, regardless. But if you don't have prior work, submit, what you got, what I'm saying, like the sample, whether you got a sample scene, like current sample, current rough cut, if you have that. But if you have just a sample, like I said, if all you have is a scene, like one scene, give us the best scene possible. But again, we're gonna, only review up to 5 minutes. But then, if you don't have that, you got like a pitch deck or a lookbook that kind of shows visually what you're trying to convey. You can upload that as well as a PDF. Whatever you have that's going to show us visually that you can really do this and show us your vision. So all of that is in here, where you can put those links, those passwords, or if you just want to upload like an MP4 or something. Some people have YouTube or Vimeo. So however you want to do it, it's fine. Let me see here. Also, tell us about yourself. If you're an aspiring filmmaker, you're new to this. Talk about, why documentary? What attracts you to this medium? And also, we want to know about some of the challenges that you think documentary filmmakers face in the South. I know I love answering this because I still answer these questions to this day. Some of the challenges, I think, funding, opportunity, for more exposure. Because, we're not New York or LA, it seems like New York and LA gets all the exposure, all the attention, but it's a lot of talent here in the South. And I'm glad that you guys are applying to the grant and are just doing films in general, because it's going to take us to continue to make quality work and get work out there to change that narrative, that it's not only New York and LA, the South is here, and we have a lot of things to show. So yeah, that's why I always say continue to make work, and continue to stay in the South as well. For emerging and established filmmakers, these are more experienced folks. What are some of your accomplishments? What are you most proud of? What does success look like to you as a filmmaker? And also, what are some of the challenges as well? And it just can be a sentence or two for each one, and you just copy and paste, put them in here. And also, how did you learn about SDF filmmaking grants? Did you see us on social media? Did you get it in an email? Did a friend tell you about it? Did an organization, kind of let us know where you heard it from. And also, what organizations in your community, whether, your city or state, do you recognize as serving independent artists? Whether it's an arts council where you're at, or an organization that's doing documentary screenings, or whatever. What organizations or entities in your area do you recognize as serving independent artists? We would like to know, and also, I'm in North Carolina, we kind of know a lot of different organizations here in Durham, but if you're in like Arkansas, if you're in Florida, in New Orleans, let us know, who out there are really supporting you guys. So we would love to know and maybe reach out, see how we can, help, with that. So definitely fill this out and let us know, especially if you're in those areas outside of North Carolina. Definitely let us know. And this is demographic stuff. It's optional, totally optional. You don't have to fill it out. But if you do, race and ethnicity, gender, disability, but it's totally optional. You don't have to fill it out, but if you do, here it is. It's self-explanatory. And then you hit submit. And then, that's it until October 15th is the deadline. So any questions so far? That's pretty much the end of the application. Any questions of the application overall, or anything like that, or any section that you might not be clear on? Again, like if you don't have any questions, you can always email me as well, and we can talk like that also. So any questions before we head out? Yes, Rhonda, go ahead. I see your hand raised.
I was curious. So I'm here in far western North Carolina.
All right.
And I was just considering the list of personnel earlier.
Okay.
And I mean, realistically, if I'm working on the production and say it's only me and one other person,
okay,
would that count against us? I mean, we are, the writing, directing, filmmaking, editing, all of that. Does that, how does that weigh against us if it's quite clear from our personnel list that we are a small, just a two-woman team?
Hold on, repeat that question again. I'm sorry.
The question is, realistically, if we don't have such an extensive list of people working with us,
Okay.
if it's just one or two people
Okay.
who are responsible for everything,
Okay.
editing, the score, the composing, all of that, does that count against us?
Not really. It depends. It depends, I guess, how experienced you are as well. Like, have you guys done other projects before?
Small scale.
Okay, that's fine. As long as you have those work samples. Because I know a team that they're a husband and wife team. They've been doing documentaries for 30 years. It's like the husband, he shoots, he's the DP, and and the wife, she does sound, and then post, she does edit. And so it's pretty much like a two-person, it's like a husband and wife thing, and they have one outside person that's like the producer. So it's really three people. And they kind of do it like that. They might contract some stuff out here and there, but they pretty much are running the show. And so, if you're very descriptive in that and you have like great work samples that show that you guys, are top notch and you guys can tell the story, I don't see nothing wrong with it.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Cool. I think Monique has her hand up. You can go ahead.
Yes, how are you doing?
All right, how are you?
I'm doing good. So what advice would you give a person that's going into documentary.
Mhm.
I say first time.
Mhm.
So, I mean, just what advice would you give them?
I would say just, what I did, because all documentarians, we all have our first time, our first film is always challenging. I would, suggest like certain things that you don't know, definitely get a mentor. Reach out to someone who's been there and done it, that can kind of take you under their wing and you can learn a lot from. Also, if you're putting together your first project and you might not know a lot about certain things, definitely try to get folks who have a little bit of experience, get you an experienced DP, get you an experienced sound person, because visually how it's going to look and how it's going to sound are going to be very important. That's why I messed up in one of my earlier films. I didn't take sound serious. So, it shows in that, in the final product. And so I say, you know what, next go around, I'm really gonna find a good quality sound person and a good DP, because I want this thing to look visually good and I also want it to sound good as well. And so you got to think about what you really want to do, what you want to accomplish overall, what's your overall goal, and just find people that want to help contribute to that. Like what I always do, so I still do this day. I always look up podcasts. There's so many free things out there on YouTube. I'm constantly learning, always listening to different podcasts on documentary filmmaking, on filmmaking in general, how to market your film, all that stuff. And I've been blessed to even be on some of these podcasts that I've listened to even when I was first starting out, and been able to contribute some things here and there. So yeah, those are some of the things that I would do. What's your project? Like, you already got a project going, or? Monique, you're on solid. You're on mute right now.
I'm sorry.
You good?
Well, right now, I'm in thinking mode. The name of the project is "It's the Fight for Me," and so
Okay.
this project is I'll be interviewing people that has different perspectives on education and what is the fight for them when it comes down to rallying for youth and education.
Okay. Yeah. Email me. Let's talk off of this session.
Okay.
Let's talk a little bit more. Yeah. Email me, and we can set up a time to a Zoom talk about it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, or what we got in the chat?
I got one more
Okay, go.
question. So you said you'll only watch like a 5-minute scene from the movie?
Yeah, up to 5 minutes.
Is it worth the shot to also send if I could get together a rough cut trailer, or should I not even do that? I can send both.
You can send both. Like you can send the whole rough cut. But like some people like myself, when I kind of review applications, I'll look at the whole film. But some people, you never know. Some people might not want to. Some people just want to hit the certain requirement that they're required to do up to 5 minutes. So I would say, even if you submit a rough cut, if your first 5 minutes of your rough cut are great, do it. But I'm just saying that, our reviewers only are required to review up to 5 minutes. So
okay. Well, I have a trailer made back when it was made a year ago. Yeah. And because we were naive and thought, oh, we're about done, let's make a trailer. And then we added like 10 more interviews.
Right.
After making a trailer, but I still feel like the trailer does capture the tone of what we're going for.
Well, if you feel like the trailer captures it, submit it. Definitely submit. If you feel like it captures what the overall story is and everything you want to kind of, portray with the film, submit it, definitely.
Okay, cool.
I have a question, Chris, and Dana, since both of you guys work at the Southern Documentary Fund. What do you find what we're lacking right now? What do people want to see? What kind of documentaries?
Well, to me, I never, as a documentary filmmaker, I never looked at it like that. I would always, how I did it was what I want to see. You know what I'm saying? Like, the reason why I did Wilmington on Fire, my first one, because no one actually did a documentary on the 1898 Wilmington Massacre. It was a big event that happened here in North Carolina. and no one was talking about it, you know, at the time. This is like 2006 when I kind of came up with the concept. And I said, you know what, I'm gonna do it, you know? And then also with Grandmaster, the Vic Moore story, it's like now no one's talking about Black martial arts at all. But I felt like, you know, I needed to tell that story and I was connected to it. So it's really, that's what it's about. It's really about, you know, how you feel about it, you know, like, and that to me, you know, that's why I love the documentary genre, because it's not about the stars you have in it. You know, with regular narrative, you got to have Denzel and all these people to sell it and get people to watch. But with documentary, you don't need that. You know, it's just a good story. You know what I'm saying? Like whether it's about, like I said, the 1898 massacre, about an older martial artist, could be about a cook that's feeding folks in her community that don't have access to quality food. You know, it's really about the story. It's not about really, you know, what's really popular right now. Because I've never done projects like that. I've always done projects that aren't covered by the mainstream, and just focused on projects that are just great stories. And I think, to me as a filmmaker, that's what you should focus on. Dana, you have any thoughts or anything? Or
Sorry, I couldn't find my mute button. We really want to make sure we are representing all 12 states. We're based out of North Carolina, but we represent 11 other states. So we want to make sure everyone's voice is being heard. And that's more important than, I guess, what subject matter is. We want to amplify our Southern makers and just make sure everyone's stories are being shared. So not asking you to move. I'm not sure what state you're in, but I think that's really important right now, is just to make sure we're getting representation from all over.
right.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think Cynthia had her hand up. You can go ahead, Cynthia.
Yes, hi. I just wanted to know if you're a first-time filmmaker and you haven't had any funding, you haven't obtained any funding yet, will you still be, you know, equally considered in the process?
Yes. On the part where I was showing you about funding strategy, I think that's where you want to go, is showing that you have applied to certain other grant opportunities. So definitely show that, like, hey, I've applied to these grants. I have some other ones that are coming up. I'm also thinking about crowdfunding, possibly. I'm also planning on reaching out to several donors as well. So you just want to kind of not just show, you know, grant stuff. And even if you didn't get any, like with my first film, I didn't get any grants at all. But I got personal donors and I did crowdfunding. I did 2 crowdfunding campaigns that were successful, that I got money for. I put in my own personal money, a little bit of that. And also I got an NBA player to give me the post-production funding. David West, he's a retired NBA player. So he gave me the post-production funding, so as a personal donor. So I never got no grants at all with the first Wilmington on Fire. So even if you don't get the grant funding, still show that you're aggressively seeking funding. Yeah, from grants or personal donors and everything.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions before we head out today? I think we got some in the chat box, no? Or good?
I don't see any, but I was also pasting links in there to make sure
Okay.
everyone got those. So I apologize if it moves your question up.
If you have any questions, because we're probably about to head out in a sec. So last call.
And we will be making this recording available. We're going to email it out to you. It'll be on our YouTube page, and it's also going to go up on our website, so you can access it anytime. And then I'm a communications manager, so I have to plug our social media. Please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and subscribe to our emails, because that's how we're going to get the information out about our next roundtable. We're having one. Chris can speak to that before you go.
Yeah.
We have a really great roundtable coming up.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we definitely have a good one. Folks who are in, you know, rough cut stage or editing, you definitely don't want to miss this. October 19th at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're going to be talking with award-winning editor, Bonnie Cutler. She's going to be sharing us her insight about editing, documentary editing, everything, the ins and outs of editing documentaries, docuseries, and it's free and open to everyone. So definitely, we'll definitely be sending you guys a link to register for that. I'm definitely excited about it. I'm actually going to be doing the conversation, but I'm going to be taking notes as well. Because even just talking to Bonnie, just even before we do this thing on the 19th, I've learned so much, just a brief conversation. So I know you guys are going to get a lot out of it. So definitely join us on October 19th for that masterclass at 6 o'clock, October 19th with Bonnie Cutler. So if you're looking for that insight of how to edit your documentary or different things, and we're going to open it up for questions as well. So if you have questions about your rough cut or about how you're editing certain things, she'll be there to answer your questions as well in real time. So definitely take advantage of this. I'm looking forward to it. Like I said, I'm definitely taking notes while I'm doing this on October 19th. And I definitely think you guys should show up for that as well. Any other questions before we head out? This is the last call right here before we head out for the day.
And Chris, before you leave, you owe them a link to your work.
Oh, that's right. Let me send it to you. Forgot all about that. Let me send in the chat right now. You can check out Wilmington on Fire at all right. You can check out that film right there. And Grandmaster. Check us out on Facebook.
And if you do have any questions after you get off this call and you're like, oh, I should have asked that, definitely email Chris. It's just chris@southerndocumentaryfund.org.
Yeah.
And if you can't remember that, the email address on our website, info@southerndocumentaryfund.org. We check that very regularly, so we'll get an answer to you there as well.
Yeah, definitely hit me up. Also, if you want that budget webinar as well, which is a good one, email me as well, and I'll send you that link.
I have one more question.
All right.
So if you mentioned you sought out the basketball player guy for funding.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't seek him out. He kind of found me.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, it was pretty much luck. That's why I always say, always market your film because you never know who's watching. And so what I was doing with marketing, even while I was filming, I was constantly doing podcasts, whatever blogs I can get on, I was doing them. And luckily he was a fan of a certain blog that I did an interview with maybe a year prior to him reaching out. And he reached out to that media outlet and said, hey, I want to get this film. Is it out yet? And so that person hit me up and said, hey, David West reached out to me and said he wanted a copy of the film. And I know you're still filming and I know you need some money. He might want to fund it. And I said, yeah, well, connect me. And that's how it happened. And so he wanted to actually he thought the film was done. And I said, no, it's not done. And he said, well, how much you need to get this thing done? And I told him, and the rest is history. And that's really how, it all happened. And that's how it happened with a lot of folks that have supported. They either heard about me through the media. So that's why I'm always doing media stuff, regardless how big or small the platform is. And also that's why I'm always screening because a lot of my funding for my newer projects, like we just wrapped Wilmington on Fire Chapter 2. And a lot of that funding came from people coming to my community screenings because, folks with money, they don't walk around with a sign.
Saying I got money.
Yeah, this one guy, he's a big tech company owner in Wilmington, and he came to a couple of my screenings in Wilmington, and I didn't know who he was. And he reached out to my lawyer, because him and my entertainment lawyer was friends, and he said, "Man, I saw your client Chris. I really like this story." He said he wanted to do a part 2 to this, and I want to help him. I want to help him do it, and so he set it up, and he wrote me a check to get it going. I think like $30,000 was the start of it to get part 2 going. And then last year, Hillary Burton Morgan, she came on board. She heard about me, and she started.
She was in White Collar, right?
Yeah, she was in White Collar. Yeah. Her husband's Jeffrey Dean Morgan from The Walking Dead. Yeah.
Okay.
And so she always had this tie to Wilmington. And so she heard about my film and shouted me out on Instagram. And I reached out, said, hey, thanks. And she hit me back. We just connected. And I said, hey, I'm doing part 2. We're filming now. And she said, hey, I would love to get behind this and support it. And so that's how it happens sometimes, man. You know, it's hard to explain. You just want to, you know, make sure you're in position. So when they do come to you, but that's why I always advocate constantly screen if you can, constantly do any type of media promotion or blog posts. It's helped me out so much. That's why I constantly screen. That's not the reason why, but I always try to screen because you never know who's at those screenings. Even the guy that does my key art now, he does a lot of big time movie studio key art. He attended a virtual screening last year, loved my story. And that's what I said is this grant is actually helps you pitch when you're doing these Q&As. Because a lot of times when you're doing your Q&A, people are asking you some of those questions that you see on the grant. You know, how are you connected to the story? Why are you telling this story? You know, and when people hear that, a lot of times people gravitate towards it and want to help and feel, you know, they might have that extra money or time. Like this guy, he does a lot of key art for a lot of these Hollywood movies. He heard my story. He reached out after the Q&A and said, man, I would love to design the poster for Wilmington on Fire 2 and Grandmaster. And he did. And you can go on the page, you'll see it. It's, oh man, it's great stuff. And so you know, that type of stuff happens where it's not just about money. You might actually get a cool resource, getting the help of a professional key art designer that we all want, you know. So that's why,
I asked about the basketball player thing because I'm in talks with someone who she's an actress, but she's considering coming on board just to help get it closer towards help increase the odds of distribution is what I'm trying to say, because I don't know much about distribution on my end at all. Right. But should I even mention that in my pitch if it's not a sure thing yet? We're just in talks. Like it could fall through and then.
Yeah, you definitely want to put that in. You know, even you're pretty much saying, you know, we've been in talks. Like even with mine, you know, I've been in talk. I'm kind of in talks with some distributors now. You know, nothing's set yet in stone. You know, we're just talking. So you can kind of put that, you know, saying, hey, you know, I have relationships. We've been talking to these distributors with the possibility of distributing this film. You know, you know how it is. It always changes. You know, it might not happen. It might happen. You know, but it shows that you are taking the initiative into looking into distribution and actual with real distributors.
Okay, yeah, because I don't know anything about distribution, but she'd be like the one who would. She said if she decides to sign the paperwork, she would pitch to distributors. Right. But I'm like,
well, if she signs, she comes on board and signs the paperwork before the grant application, definitely put her in.
Okay. Well, I didn't know if I should mention. I didn't know if I should mention it in the application if it doesn't become a sure thing. Like, should I wait?
No, you could. I think you can put it in, but you don't have to say, you know, that it's guaranteed. Because even in that part, you know, this, you know, sometimes it's a wish list saying that, hey, my film, I've looked up this distributor, they distribute documentaries around this type of subject matter. I think it's a good fit, you know, for this. Doesn't mean it's going to happen.
Yeah,
you know,
I guess
it just shows that you have
it could be like a strategy. So like even if it doesn't work with this person, I can just try the strategy over.
Right. And that's why it's distribution strategy. That's why it's named that section. So
Okay.
But that's cool, man. Yeah, I would love to talk to you more about your stuff. Just email me if you want to chat.
Okay, cool.
Cool. All right. Well, I guess that's it today.
One more question.
All right, this is the last question.
Yeah. This is Felicia. I just wanted to ask now, you said we could email you about the budget webinar, but Dana actually put a link in the chat. Is that the same thing? Or is it two different sources?
Resources? No, it's a different. That's the thing that Dana sent. That's not the webinar. That's just showing you a template of the budget.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah. All right, so we can still email you about the webinar.
Yes, for sure. The webinar is real cool because more of her talking and going through the steps. And also she has a link as well that she'll share where you can see another template as well that she actually used. So the webinar is real cool because it's like her going through the steps and showing you the steps. Like I said, I've been watching it and it's helped me out a lot. So I know you guys will definitely appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I think Keith, this is the last one. Go ahead, Keith. Oh, Keith, you got your hand raised. Keith Binion. You're on mute if you're trying to talk.
He also put a question in the
okay.
chat. It says, what is a good title for a project manager?
Title for a project manager. Like producer? I'm not understanding your question. I guess a producer. Yeah, producer. That's a good one. It's pretty much.
If you have, if you're not able to unmute, you can always email Chris after this to.
Yeah, email me.
Yeah.
We can talk more about it. Cool. Well, that's it, everyone. Thank you again for attending our info session. Remember, that grant application deadline is coming up. Don't let it sneak up on you, because it will. October 15th, midnight. Get your applications in. Like I said, we'll have this recording up soon. If you need it sooner, we also have the previous session as well up, if you want to check that out. If you don't want to wait around on us with this one, you can definitely check out the first one as well. It's pretty much the same, go through it the same thing. And also some folks have some cool questions as well, just like you guys. So you might, find something helpful with some of their questions as well from the first info session. But again, Christopher Everett, thank you guys again. And also join us October 19th at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for a conversation with Bonnie Cutler about the ins and outs of documentary editing. So definitely check that out. And it's free, open to the public. We hope you guys can join us for that as well, for a much needed conversation about editing. So again, if you have any questions, just email me at any time. And with any of your questions about whether it's SDF or the documentary grant in general, just hit me up. So again, thank you guys again for attending the info session number 2 with the Southern Documentary Fund for our 2021 documentary production grant.